Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us for another AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, we're excited to be joined by Todd Shapiro, co-founder, CEO, and director of Red Light Holland, pioneering the global movement for safe legal psilocybin through the use of microdosing and education. Excited to sit down today and chat a little bit about what is going on at Red Light Holland and kind of just get a general sense of what is going on in the world of psychedelics as it continues to evolve. I know it has been a space that has been around for a while, but really feels like it's finding its footing and really kind of, jumping into an explosion of interest, which has been fantastic to see. With all that said, if you're out there and you have questions or comments, you want to throw them in the chat, you're always welcome to do that as we go along. I see Stevie's in there, which is great to see you, Stevie. So with all that said, really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Todd. How are you doing? How's your Thursday so far?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Nice to be here. It's great to talk to you again, and I appreciate the invite on the show.
Of course, anytime. Well, then, so I figured a great place to start. I'm sure most people are familiar with you. We, blast this all over social, where most people are tuned into things, especially in the world of psychedelics. But would love to just to start with kind of a table set for both you and sort of, how Red Light even came to be. Would love to hear that story to start.
Are you formerly from radio, by the way? That was like an expression we would use in radio. Like you would reset the dinner table. That's like a very common phrase. So for new listeners, new followers, new shareholders, you want to make sure that you're not just assuming everybody knows everything. Anyway, that's an aside. Well done.
That's a compliment coming from you. I feel like with the background that you have. So that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Good job. No, it's perfect. So yeah. I mean, listen, Red Light Holland is a great story. We have been publicly traded now for almost 5 years. I think our anniversary is May 28th, 5 years on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Wow. Our shares are available on the OTC as well under TRUFF, TRUFF, and as you can see, TRIP on the CSE, TRIP. We went public on a concept of, hey, let's get microdosing to the masses, formerly from media, as I just mentioned earlier. So to reset that dinner table and not to bore, people who know me as an individual who has suffered from anxiety and focus issues in my day. I had learned about microdosing through a lot of creative types, a lot of interviews, a lot of, people are like super famous now in the podcasting world that I used to talk to. And explored it and recognized that, I want to take a stab at making this mainstream. And that was our number one slogan from the beginning, from underground to mainstream. We raised 4 million-ish out of the gate. We went public, a few months after. We were a private company at first. The big hype and the kind of the hoopla came into the sector, which was a glorious thing at the time, obviously. And Red Light, did the smart thing on the back of it. We raised significant capital at very high valuations. And since that, the company has really, really, really expanded. Unfortunately, a depleting share price tells a different story, and it's a very difficult stress that I wear every day as the largest shareholder, founder, CEO, and director of the company. But it doesn't change our mission, and it doesn't change our focus. I mean, it is head down. We are delivering on a lot of different fronts. And right now we are absolutely focused on growing the business, increasing shareholder value. Every day we attempt to do that. And we believe that with the cash that we still have at hand, with the runway, with the decrease in burn quarterly that you can look up, with year over year, I think we've increased revenues year over year per quarter. I think every year we've gone public, maybe there's been sort of like 1 or 2 periods that have just been a bit off, but I don't even know if that's the case. And let's get more into what the company does current day, because there have been some pivots as an everything mushroom company, but that's context. We're really proud of what we do. And, we are in the Netherlands and in Canada with distribution in the States and R&D now going on in the, soon to be hopefully in the States as well. So I'm open for any and all questions. I hope I didn't give too much away as a teaser, but again, I can't wait to talk to you for a long form conversation so we don't have to rush anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And again, I think that context is super helpful for, just getting a sense of what you do and kind of what brought you into that, just because I think, you're definitely not alone in terms of facing those things of whether it's anxiety or kind of managing stuff or stress. I think a lot of people face that. And I know psychedelics can be used sort of on the macro dose for kind of more intense therapeutic treatments, but also like you're saying on the microdose side for kind of a wider, I guess, net of ailments that people face day to day. So I think it's great to try to work through on giving access for that. And again, there can be short-term pain in the markets. That is true of any sector almost. Definitely hard, obviously, in an emerging area, but that doesn't necessarily kind of take away, I think, from the larger term picture of people looking for solutions and different ways to kind of treat these things. So I think that's great to do that work there. You mentioned, working obviously in the Netherlands and in Canada as well, being based in Canada. Can you talk through sort of a little bit high level on the Netherlands side, why that came to be? I'm guessing that also the Holland in Holland, I would imagine. Can you kind of take us through, why that market?
Yeah, great point. When we went public, the Netherlands was just a market that we could access early. The regulations permit the sale of what are called magic truffles.
Mhm.
There's magic mushrooms. In this case, it's magic truffles. It's really, I mean, it's a simplified, I'm not a mycologist definition of it, but just think the underground portion, the fruiting body as opposed to what grows above it.
Mhm.
And that is the legality that we're allowed to work with and the framework that we do. And so we felt that it was a great place to explore, to enter, really as a guinea pig. I would say that of any original investor and probably shareholders in Red Light Holland over the last 5 years, I would feel that if you were to ask most of them, I would think that they would say what I'm about to say now is we felt that regulatory processes would have moved a little bit more rapidly. So in terms of not necessarily legalizing magic mushrooms or psilocybin, which is a psychoactive ingredient within it, but really trying to like expand the markets and really sort of have a more narrow focus on where it could end up. So unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. I mean, a few markets have opened up, but a lot of them, you really need to be locally involved. You need to be citizens of either that specific state or within the country. You can't be publicly traded companies. There's a lot of rules around the new regulations in Oregon and in Denver, et cetera. So, we explore those markets, but back to the Netherlands, we can operate an efficient business. So we have a modest truffle farm that grows these magic truffles. And, we've really perfected how to grow them and how to package them and how to distribute them. Most of it is intercompany revenue that goes to a distribution company that we own called SR Wholesale. Uniquely, a lot of the revenue that we make on the farm doesn't actually show up on the reported books because that's intercompany revenue. So it gets kind of within the mix. But the farm actually, if it was like a privatized individual business, I believe that thing would run profitably as again, a modest growing business. We then have SR Wholesale, that is a really great distribution company that sells all sorts of different products, but primarily magic truffles. Some of the other products that company sells are cannabis seeds, things like kratom, that's really making a really big dent right now in purchases, and we're learning more about that product. And we get to hundreds of stores across the Netherlands. So we're selling our own branded microdose products that are the magic truffles, but also we have a maca brand. And the maca brand holds different SKUs under its umbrella, and we really are proud of the maca brand. You can go to worldofmaca.com to see more. And on top of it, Mackenzie, sorry, we have so much going on, so it's hard to do it in short little quick clips here. We also have this Mushroom and More brand that we have one retail shop. Retail is not easy. I'm going to be super candid with everybody. Retail is difficult. We're seeing more and more people shop online, not go into stores. But in the meantime, it is a flagship, it is a brand name, and we sell truffles under that brand. And we have now, after years of headaches, to be honest, we have a payment processing system in the Netherlands. So we're starting to figure out ways to ramp up the mushroomandmore.nl website where people can buy online. And we're learning a lot about retail distribution and products, but also direct to consumer distribution. So B2B versus D2C. And, there's certain strategies that now we're learning we feel can benefit one or the other of different type of product. And right now, I think we're leaning towards more of a DTC approach for magic truffles because we're seeing more and more people start to buy it that way with some of our competitors and things. So, just an overall snapshot of what goes on in the Netherlands. But in the meantime, what we're most proud of, I'm sorry, I never let anyone answer questions. I just start, or ask questions. I start answering them before they come in. But what we're very proud about as a company, and I've said this for the last 5 years, is nobody's done it like us. Between obviously the legalities, because we're a publicly listed company, because of things like audits, because of legal opinions, and everything, we're so carefully focused on being a self-regulatory company with great corporate governance, and we are. I mean, we have telecounseling support set up. If you buy our products, you scan a barcode and get to a telecounselor. We have an iMicro app that's collected close to 1,000, if not more now, data points that are consensual, privacy-first data collection that we've shared with the UK Drug Committee over in the UK, backed by David Nutt. We're learning about the results, the success of people using our products in the Netherlands. We've advocated on behalf of that, And we are outliers, and we're proud of being outliers. And, it's expensive to be an outlier by doing it on the regulatory process, but we're damn proud of it. And I think every shareholder should be that way, because while it costs capital to advocate and costs capital to do things properly, not sell into the rest of the Europe, which is illegal, which our competitors do, not even ship to Canada, which people are doing, which is illegal. We're doing everything legally, and the stress of that, but being the company that really has a lot of pride in it, and making sure that people are using our products correctly through education and information, as you so gratefully, thank you, introduced us as. This is stuff we're doing, and we continue to do. So we love the company. We love the mission.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's hard work to do it the right way sometimes, but I think it pays off, and hopefully investors can recognize.
It's hard. It's hard work doing it the right way. That should be my next slogan. From underground to mainstream. By the way, a lot of bullshit trying to go to mainstream. It'd probably be better to be an illegal drug dealer. It's terrible.
Yes, it'd be easier to be a drug dealer. You can also have that one. I think it's true. It's hard. It's hard out there. But I think when you're talking with investors and sort of attracting investors, I feel like in, psychedelic companies across the board, I think what you guys are doing is relatively unique, which is great. But across the board, I think a lot of investors are attracted. Obviously, people want returns, and that's a big element of why they would have, something in their portfolio. But I think a lot of people, for psychedelics specifically, whether it's because they've used it in their own lives and realize how much it's impacted them, or they have a family, friend, and really have seen that have a strong impact in their life, seem to be investing in it also from kind of a, I don't know how you'd say it, not holistic perspective, but just from a sort of, it's important. Yes, exactly. Passion investing. So is that the main base of your investors when you're talking to people? What's sort of the blend there when you're talking with people who are investing?
Mackenzie, it's another great question. My job is to make investors money. It's my fiduciary responsibility. So yes, do I love that there are passion investors in our company? I absolutely do. Do I love that there are, those investors that are just purely looking at fundamentals and want the business to grow based on the forward-looking aspect of it and where they think the markets will open up to? Yeah, we love those investors too. We love all investors. So I am a passion investor as the largest shareholder. I also am the operator and the day-to-day stress wearer. But that doesn't change the mission that I need to create shareholder value. So while I'd like to think that people can withstand sort of these highs and lows, and it is a low right now, and hold through that think of the long-term approach, look at our responsibility, cautious nature with cash, look at all the brands we've grown. Look at, people don't realize even like website maintenance costs money. Even, every product I put out there, the R&D to get, to do that, the countless amounts of hours that go into design, that go into trying to get, like we have this new mushroom supplement that we've launched for pre-sale now. That's not of the magic variety, but it's of lion's mane and shiitake. We have a Health Canada approved NPN number. That doesn't happen overnight. So, but all these things cost money. And so, with that being said, we believe we've been very, 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 very good with our use of capital. And in fact, I think we've been tremendous, and not to necessarily compare a company that is been doing this for 5 years to companies that are no longer doing this. But if one were to look at that, there were probably 40 odd companies that started in the space. I think there's like 7 or 8 that exist in the psychedelic sector. And I can name countless of failures. With that being said, I don't want to measure the success on a failing rate. I want to measure the success of the next 5 years. And from day one, I've maintained it takes 10 years to grow a company. The first 5 years are survival and brand building. That's the first 5 years of any new business. And people may think they know how to run businesses. Go look at business success rate. 75 to 80% of businesses fail after the first 5 years. And we think that we've done a great job in let's just call it surviving. I know no one wants to hear that, but a great job in brand building. And we can get into all the things we're doing in a moment. I'm really excited by the next 5 years, because the next 5 years now we can really start talking about, will there be regulatory changes? Look at all the behind the scenes infrastructure support that Red Light Holland and our portfolio companies have done, grown, committed to on a very tight team, on a very overworked team. Some employees could work a little harder, to be honest. But, with that being said, we remain, separate the share price, which is a hard thing to do because it's my number one job to make shareholders money, increase shareholder value. I know my responsibility. But beyond all that, holy crap, have we done a lot at Red Light Holland, and it's only going to lead to the next stage, we believe, of that potential success.
Yeah, that's good. Again, I think getting through those hard first few years, whether that's 5 years, 1 year, 3 years, definitely those are the toughest areas. And again, almost halfway there to that 10-year mark, which is great. I do want to talk a little bit about sort of the general overall environment for psychedelics and how that's changing and evolving. But do you want to first touch on, like you were saying, Red Light Holland, what you're kind of envisioning for the next 5 years? Would love to hear on that front.
Yeah, I'm very careful about the where the regulatory process is going. I mean, what I can say is this: psychedelics, and specifically psilocybin, and maybe one that we're not so focused on, MDMA, is really highly talked about. You have a lot of big boys back in this stuff, big boys. That's an expression for just like some of these, big corporate adventures like a Compass and a Tide. And Kristen Angemeyer, is talking about obviously their results over at a Tide and what they're doing in terms of, phase 2s and growing clinicals and things like this. Not many brands are considering kind of this like legal, recreational, naturally occurring use, which is something we're still dead set determined on. Especially with the support of our lab support in both Canada and the US. Our lab support being, we work with Seacrest Laboratories in Montreal, Canada. And then we're working with Urban Labs, that is a DEA and FDA approved a lab over in the United States, which is a very significant partnership. So where does this lead to, Mackenzie? Well, put it this way. While I don't have a direct answer of the regulatory changes other than what we're seeing in Oregon and facilitator-based opportunities, which, by the way, is a whole different business model too. It's not easy to do that. It's hospitality business. It's very expensive. People don't have a lot of this disposable income. We're still learning and studying that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we won't ever enter it.
Sure.
But I know concretely that the conversation isn't going away. When you have the Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Representative Doug Collins, formerly out of Arkansas, look in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump, love him or hate him, but he looks him dead in the eye, and Trump says to Collins and says, "What are you doing for the suicide rates?" And Collins replies, "It's not good, President, it's not good." And I think statistically there's 22 or 25 veteran suicides a day in the United States of America. And he concretely replied back, I use that word concretely because it's dead set significant, is psychedelics are being explored. I paused there. Think about that. Psychedelics are being explored, sitting there, looking the president directly in the face. Now, if that was a conversation we ever thought would exist on that high level nature with every important senator and executive in the room, I think that would have been a dream, to be honest. Is there part of me, and I say this carefully, I always say do your financial due diligence and speak to financial advisors, all that kind of stuff that I got to say. But if we were in cannabis 10 years ago and someone looked the president dead in the eye and said, hey, we're going to actually think of getting access to cannabis on that kind of scale, in those bull runs, stocks were getting up 300, 400, 500% that day, most likely. There was a hint of a license, things went up crazy in a lot of these, bullshit companies, quite frankly. And so I'm a little disheartened by the fact that people aren't looking, not just our company, but the sector as a whole of where they think it may be going. But the other side of me is the head down, grow the business side. Is like, okay, so it didn't impact the stock today, but it absolutely supports the mission. And the mission being, let's get access to people, the right to try. And I've maintained from day one as well, veterans are a massive focus of ours. We want to figure out a way to get psilocybin into veterans' hands. We're still always having these conversations around that. They're difficult because the governments are making it a little slower in the approach that, again, we thought it would take to get to them. But it doesn't mean that these conversations aren't always being had. So working with the DEA lab, Urban Labs, DEA has already approved a quota. We're now waiting on an import permit to send our magic truffles from the Netherlands to California. Again, these are the things that can be accomplished, and we work on the product and somehow get it in the hands of those that need it. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. And as long as these conversations are being had at those kind of levels, we believe that there are good things in store for our future. But in the meantime, we can't predict it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's definitely very encouraging to have seen between even pre-election, I think just the right to try conversation element has been important. But yeah, like you're saying, very explicitly calling out psychedelics as a way to kind of help and support veterans for mental health, for PTSD, for suicidality, all those things. I think definitely very important and encouraging to see. Do you think that, I want to ask basically, if we do see sort of the uncorking and they allow strongly for psychedelics for treatment, what does that look like explicitly for you guys? Does that mean you get to grow a lot more? How does that, like, how would you adjust and kind of fit into that new world ultimately?
Yeah, ideally, we'd like to supply products. So we see that as a great path. Um, we've learned from growing magic truffles. We've learned from growing mushrooms, and that's a part of the business we haven't talked about yet, which hopefully we'll explore, because really now we're growing brands and we're a CPG everything mushroom company. And I'm sorry if that confuses investors or the story, but in in the meantime, right, I have so little revenue streams in psychedelics that I had to choose revenue streams that we could do in the near term.
Of course.
But by the way, in the near term, we're still dealing with mushrooms. Mushroom is a mushroom is a mushroom. There's just blocks. You make the block somehow, whether it's through wheat, soy, barley. There's different formulas that people have. Different farmers do it different ways. You inject a liquid mycelium strain in it, like a mushroom strain, and out come beautiful mushrooms, or in some cases underground, beautiful truffles. And we've learned and put the infrastructure in place, from farming to packaging to distribution, in some case retail, in other case online sales, and a lot of it just business to business sales too. So we're proud of that. And what we learn, if there's ever a market, which we believe there will be one day, that we can get access to those that are allowed by regulatory reasons and government officials, well, then we will hopefully be able to get more product into the United States or into Canada. We will be able to, as we've done, we've got COAs on some of our products. We've learned about standardization. We understand psilocybin and psilocin content within the amounts that we ship over. We've done a lot of research. We know how to dry. We know how to freeze dry. We know how to package this stuff. We know eventually how to put into pill form. And this is more stuff we're doing in R&D. So yes, we would like to continue to do that with our naturally occurring farm-grown truffles, get it over, standardize it, distribute it to those that are allowed to get it.
I think perfectly answered. And again, that expertise is super important as you continue to build that out, which is interesting. I see a question in the comments, which I'll just pull up really quickly, which they're asking. My question or wonder is, how do people stop the spores spreading to the hands of regular people and people just creating their own home brew kit? I imagine it's similar to cannabis or coffee or beer. You could technically grow your own product, but it would be difficult and costly and difficult, I would imagine. Is that ultimately what you'd say?
Yeah, the answer is we don't. We'll never be able to stop that. Cannabis is a great example of that. They rolled that out, I think, terribly in Canada. There weren't regulatory crackdowns on those that were buying it illegally. Costs got too high, oversaturation. It was really difficult. What we can control on our side is those latter points that I mentioned. How do we advocate and work with governments to make sure that there are only a certain amount of suppliers, certain amount of growers, not over-regulate, meaning hand it out to everybody without understanding the market size.
Sure.
So the illegal stuff's always going to exist. I mean, where are you, Mackenzie?
In Maryland.
Okay, so in Canada right now, I know this is true in the United States, but in Canada, like through our public mail service, Canada Post, people, and I'm not imploring or encouraging people to do this, but people can go online and order and get magic mushrooms shipped to their house from Canada Post. This is a government regulated postal service. And yet, so here I am as the company that's, paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in audits, legal opinions a year. My operating costs are absolutely leading to, I would say, 90% of the burn, not the companies. And yet, I can't ship it to people. So, I mean, this is a frustrating point, but I got to play nice. I got to play nice to whatever government is in position. It doesn't matter which way I lean, right or left. And on behalf of shareholders, we have to accept that it's a process and it's a long process. But the best thing I can do is continue to collect data, continue to standardize our products, continue to work within the means of the laws, and still make our case at being the best of what we do. And hopefully we'll be the ones they choose to work with.
Yeah, I think building that brand over time, ultimately building that trust, is the important part, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I don't know if my name's helping me at this point. What do you think?
Really?
I don't know. I go through a process in everything in life, right? And I listen to shareholders tremendously. So out of the gate, I think Red Light Holland was a tremendous name. It really represented A, where we were, but B, this idea of decrim choices, right to deregulation, and with that though laws supporting it. So say what you want about sex workers, everyone has their opinion, but there was protectionary methods set in place for that and made it illegal framework. And, so my mind is like kind of catchy, kind of cool where we are, but also like a really important message. Like, we want this to be regulated and protected against with safety and assurances and education and information. Now I'm wondering, as we start to standardize and really focus, like maybe there's other ideas. I still love the logo, but I do have an idea for an amazing name change that one day I'll figure out a way to share with shareholders, because I think we'd ultimately need a vote, or there's ways to maybe do it, but or create a brand around it that just kind of gets more noticed. But I think it's a brilliant name change. I'm thinking that. If not, maybe shareholders can give me their feedback on that.
That's great to have that communication either way. I think that's important. I wish we could have a teaser on it, but of course, obviously the shareholders are going to come first in terms of having that discussion. So that's totally fair. We'll have to wait and be patient on that front. I guess overall, because I know we have a little bit limited time, but
I'll
just
go
sort
forever.
I love that.
Let's go.
It's great. It's great. Well, we'll definitely hopefully have you on in the future too, to kind of check in as we go along. But just sort of, having conversations with shareholders right now, looking like in this year, are the main conversations kind of like what you're saying with the catalysts that you're seeing, in the US with the government side of things? Is the state stuff entering at all in terms of opportunities there? I know you were saying it's a little bit expensive and complicated maybe for the Colorado side or for Oregon. But how much is that sort of in the mix in terms of like this year's plan?
Yeah, we have our ear to the ground, our ear to the street, so to speak, on anything happening in those markets. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like, I'm watching people fail to learn from their mistakes before we pounce in, and so many people are failing. I mean, if I were to share with you the amount of companies that pitch me ideas, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank, because we're so well capitalized still, and there's there's very little access to capital for companies right now. It's a very difficult time for fundraising. So they're coming to me for capital. I mean, I'm talking everything, like debt deals to, like CPG brands to R&D stuff, but everyone's running out of money or has zero money, in fact. So are there opportunities there? We're going to explore them. I never not explore opportunities. I mean, listen, Mackenzie, I explore opportunities in not just our sector, but in other sectors, because that's my fiduciary responsibility. Again, if there's for some reason another opportunity that can really present great cash flow for shareholders, there could be even pivots on that. I'm really exploring a lot of different things. One of the things I even put out there a couple of weeks ago was, does the company explore Bitcoin into our treasury, which was very, very polarizing, its response. I'm very bullish on it. I've talked to my board of directors on it. I have one very large shareholder that actually emails me and makes a big pitch. And I'm actually aligned with him, but I don't control the every decision of the company. As a management, I lead, but in big decisions like that are material, we go through a process. I think the main thing I want to highlight before we end the interview is Red Light Holland has done a brilliant job on focusing on CPG products, consumer product goods that people can buy now. People can buy. We have a little farm in New Brunswick that is growing shiitake mushrooms that gets widespread delivery across Ontario and Eastern Canada. It ends up in things like Farm Boys through distribution companies and the big grocery chains. We've really developed this brand called Happy Caps. Happy Caps is a mushroom home grow kit brand that sells shiitake, lion's mane, and oyster mushrooms. Mackenzie, this is a great success story. I mean, we bought this tiny little farm that I'm like, we can do something with. And now we just delivered over 21,000 units to Costco across Canada, coast to coast. Nice. And we're really pleased with the distribution that they've done, by the way, because they're in more Ontario stores. And I really want Ontario to explore these as opposed to just out west or out east. So that launch is happening just in time for the long weekend. Go buy your home grow kits. One day, maybe those home grow kits, by the way, are psilocybin home grow kits. And as you said earlier, Mackenzie, they allowed home grow plants for cannabis. That's the vision. Then we can do a Happy Caps branded home grow kit. Maybe that takes years to do. Maybe, that's the thought behind that. So we're so happy. Those home grow kits, by the way, lion's mane, shiitake, oyster, the legal edible, you grow them, you harvest them, you cultivate them, you cook with them. They're great for the family. They're great if you're a chef, all this kind of stuff. As we like to say, bring out your inner farmer and bring out your inner chef within you. They are also in Albertsons Safeway brand in Oregon and into Washington State. People out in those regions are big mushroom supporters and lovers. We're very excited and hopeful that relationship, where we're in 66 stores, will expand to further stores. No confirmation on that, but we really believe that's the path. Growth, continued growth on that brand, and we've launched the Happy Cap supplements, and the supplements are a really big business. By the way, incredible margins in the supplements, and a lot easier of a product to sell and distribute. Better shelf life, better shipping conditions. More people get on subscription basis once they get into them. Like they use 2 a day, 60 a month, which is in a pack, and then they get a year subscription. That's what we're hoping for, and we're really excited to grow the Happy Caps Functional. That's their name, with a highlight on fun. And also they're good for you. Again, that Health Canada NPN number that has proven out, through science, that it is immune support. It is also antioxidants. A lot of companies go out there and make a lot of claims on their products that they have, but they don't actually have it backed. And quite frankly, it's bullshit. They're breaking laws, like by making false claims that eventually they could be called out on. We don't do that because we again, our corporate governance, our self-regulatory measures. So we're really excited. happycaps.ca in Canada, or happycapsusa.com in America. It's a brilliant brand. So again, you asked me about the future. I can't predict it. I can only tell you what the mission is to get there for psilocybin. But what I can tell you in the near term, we're growing great brands, and products are made available that you can use for a health and wellness overall company, mind and body health. Mind and body health.
It's both true. It's both true.
And, hopefully we can do more of the mind health as the years expand. But in the meantime, we're really helping the body, and eating mushrooms is a really good thing. So great initiatives from Red Light Holland, and we're so excited.
That's fantastic. Again, really hitting every single, possible use for mushrooms, which is amazing. Is there any that you haven't, tapped into that you're looking into? I feel like, I don't know, like beauty, or like mushroom facials or hair dye or anything. There's got to be something that is untouched still.
I've been pitched a lot of these business ideas, from mushroom leather to mushroom coffees is a big one.
Yeah.
Again, when I one of the benefits of actually having capital is learning through other people's mistakes, like I said earlier. Yeah. So a lot of the decisions that we make aren't only necessarily not buying companies, but then not going into that line of work because we're realizing it's just failing over and over again. Yeah. So it's hard out there, right? And I really feel for the entrepreneurial spirit, because there's a lot of incredible, hardworking, passionate people who have had companies that failed. There's some ones who didn't give a shit and failed also, and I don't feel bad for them, but the hardworking ones. But through that education, I've been pitched everything from mushroom jerky to mushroom, like you name it. But when I look at the balance sheets of these companies who need my money, who've already burnt through millions of dollars to get where they're getting through, but don't have that line in sight for profitability, which is everything we're again focused on. It makes it an easier decision for us, A, not to even buy them, but then B, not even to go into that stream of work. So we do have some ideas for new product innovation. Again, let's just say this: we love the Happy Caps brand. I am looking very closely, as I always do, at other brands and other companies that have put in a lot of that legwork but don't have access to capital to keep them going. There are a few on my radar that are at that sort of like close to break even point, that maybe if you gave them some working capital, it would turn into something special based on all of their past hard work. So I think there's great opportunity for Red Light Holland as well. And the one thing, if there are shareholders, and I think it's very important for me to say, and I don't want to dodge it by any means, is there is these big plans, obviously, and shareholders know this, to build a farm. I'm going to have updates very soon on what the farm project is and will be in the future. So I want the shareholders to know that there are updates on that. Prior announcements coming very soon. I'll probably do a live Q&A as well within the next couple of weeks.
That sounds awesome. All right. Sounds like a lot of exciting things ahead. Hopefully we'll check in, down the road and be able to kind of get some updates there as well, just because I think as things go along, it's very rapidly developing, at least here in the US. So I think that's great. Where can people just, keep in tune with what you're working on at Red Light Holland? Where should they be following if they want updates and to access that live and everything? Yeah,
thank you. We're at Red Light Holland on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Todd M Shapiro as just Twitter, and I don't read everything, to be honest. And you can always email me or it's easy access on the website. I do make a lot of time for shareholders, I got to tell you, maybe sometimes too much time. I implore everyone to take a hard, serious look at us and do your due diligence and stuff. But we trading at under cash and asset value, we believe presents a really good opportunity for people. But of course, you need to make that decision for yourself. I, as a director, CEO, founder, largest shareholder, I'm still so confident in our plan of attack and what we're building and what we're doing. And I really can't, like I said, first 5 years are behind us, basically after the 28th of May. And I'm very, very excited for the next 5.
Very exciting. All right. Again, Todd, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate the insight and the sort of peek behind the curtain a little bit on what you guys are working on. It's very interesting. Definitely will be staying tuned on our end. So thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks everyone out there. Appreciate it as well. And have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you again.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.